other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Today's show is sponsored by Dr. Jacalyn. Take charge of your life personally, financially, and professionally. Visit drjacalyn.com to book an appointment today.
Hello and welcome to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, live on Business Talk Radio, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Twitch. I am your host and executive producer, and tonight is our very first program for the variety show here at 6 o'clock every Friday night. And who better to have for my first guest than DearJames. DearJames is joining us from California, and he is an intuitive, a clairvoyant. He is an advice columnist, and he also has a radio show. And let's not forget, he's an author. So I don't know what you're doing in your spare time, DearJames.
Rest, sleep.
Well, it is such a privilege to have you here for this pioneer show, the variety show. And there are plenty of people who are looking forward to hearing from you today. So as we're on the precipice of ending this very challenging year and moving into a new one. So how's everything been going with you since I last saw you?
It's been great, and thank you for allowing me to be your inaugural guest. It's a great honor, and I'm thrilled to be back with you and everything. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
And things have been very rapid paced, is the way the energies and everything's speeding up, everything crescendoing. So it's a very active and yet transitional time for everyone, I believe.
And I know you and I were talking before the program that in our lives, and mostly with the people we deal with, we're very open to change. We welcome change, but yet there are so many who find fear with change. And so when you're working with someone, how do you help them look at change in a different perspective?
One of the first things I always advise people is that fear, I use a statement, fear is your friend. Fear is simply energy. And so once you realize that fear is an energy, and it's everything's energy, but how do we use fear? And fear will either immobilize you, or it will be a catalyst to move you forward. And so what you want to do in terms of change, embracing change, and humans don't like change. We are very repetitive creatures of habit. Some people love it. They flow with it very easily. Others are very rooted and fixed and do not want what's to come. There's a fear of what's to come, and I know what I know. And so I always advise clients that fear is your friend. It's an energy. Use it. See how you're using that energy. Are you using it as a catalyst for change, or are you utilizing it in a manner that immobilizes you, that keeps you restricted and confined where you are?
Thank you for that explanation. I want to open up if people want to call in and ask DearJames questions. The number is 631-730-5468. And also, if you're watching us on Facebook, feel free to go to the comment section and put in your questions there, or let us know what you're thinking, or let DearJames know if you have a comment or you want to reach out. Again, that number is 631-730-5468. So, DearJames, for those listening or watching who are not familiar with what an intuitive is, what a clairvoyant does, can you share what your role is?
Absolutely. So I sit down with clients and much like a psychic, a clairvoyant, I sit down and listen to the unseen. So, and I'll only have your first name or something, and then I'll listen to see what's happening around you. And I'm told a story. I'm given a download, if you will, and I write down everything that's taking place. And then I go through and begin articulating the story of what's happening, not knowing you. So what's going on in your life, what's happening. So very much like that, like a psychic and a clairvoyant, I happen to call it intuitive because it comes through in an intuitive way, in a unseen way. And so all of us have it. All of us have the ability to do it. And the affirmations in it, in the experience, is that I don't know you. What's being said is affirming to you. It's speaking your language. It's speaking your truth, your story. And it's simply being, I'm mirroring it back to you. It's something that, and yet I couldn't know it. So that's the experience, is that, and it's tapping into the unseen. It's listening to what I call source, symphony, and spirit. If someone, in terms of energy-wise, or a past loved one or something, if there's a solo in the symphony, they'll step forward. And I'll know very strongly who it is, or the feeling of it, the energy of it. And then they'll recede back into the main symphony, the chorus of it all. And that's the experience. So I work with clients on that basis. And I call them soul readings or soul consultations, because it goes directly to the heart of what's going on. It's a lot of like bypassing all of the static and the noise to go right to the center of what's going on, to the heart of it. So that overall is the experience.
And as you know, dear James, I worked with you for an intuitive reading. Would you call it? Is it a reading?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I was back in April.
Yes, exactly.
And it was very easy to work with you. You have a very robust website, DearJames.com. And we set up the appointment, and you told me a lot of things that at the time I wasn't ready to hear. And they all actually were completely accurate. So I think there's something to be said about really being able to look inside and look at yourself. And I think to your point that sometimes the timing isn't right. We're not ready to accept certain things, but as we work on ourselves, as we have personal growth, then we're more open to hearing things.
Yes, absolutely. And it's definitely, I always, I joke and I always say, I don't write the news, I just report it, because of course I'm listening. It's not me, James, it's coming through from source and spirit and symphony. And so dear James steps aside, and dear James comes forward. And one of the things that I'm always advising clients, it's always for your highest and best. We may not always want to hear what we're being told, but when it speaks truth to us, that's the basis, that's the point. And then it's a matter of time. As you've said, in the moment, you may not have been ready. And yet, as you go through the work and the steps and things start happening and evolving and shifting for you, then they come into greater resonance and greater harmony and purpose. And so it's a wonderful thing. So it's challenging sometimes, because you're delivering things that people may not want to hear. And yet, you just have to trust that it will come to fruition, that it will actually truly, that the person will receive it. I had a wonderful example of a woman that on the radio show, she called in, and she wanted me to answer very, what I called at the time, kind of dime store psychic questions. She had like 7 questions that she wanted answered. And this woman was actually battling cancer and was going to pass. And so, and on the radio, she was very much like, I just want you to answer I'm trying to tell her something, gently what's happening, what's going on. And she's like, nope, I just need you to answer these 5 questions or these 7 questions. And eventually, offline afterwards, I said, what is it that you want me to do with her? And the symphony said to me, we want to see if you can get her to hear you. Because it was very painful. It was very challenging for me when she wasn't having it. She was not having it. And so the beauty of that experience was that I called her up. I followed up after the show, and I called her up and I said, okay, we're going to do this her way, not mine, so to speak. And I said, okay, what are your questions? I answered the 7 questions. And then she literally said to me, and she couldn't have known this, and she literally said to me, okay, now I'm ready to hear you.
How about that?
Isn't it? I mean, and so what a profound, beautiful, and reciprocal. It was a lesson for me that sometimes they just need to have what they need in order to hear you.
Right.
So
I think I can attest to that personally too. That makes a lot of sense. And by the way, I want to give a shout out to my sister, Debbie Wilson. Debbie is the one who brought us together. I had heard about you for many years, and I know Debbie's watching. So
Yes, she is an amazing soul. Amazing soul.
She is, and she's done a lot of work on herself, which
Yes.
I really admire. I love to see someone who is willing and open to trying new things, to looking within, and not being afraid to say, you know what, I realized I was kind of stuck in that one area. I know that's for me. I was stuck in a few areas, and if I get stuck again, I'll revisit it, So, but I do have some questions for you that are going to take a lot more time. So I want to get our commercial break out of the way. So
Okay.
we can hear from some of our friends who are sponsors, and we will be right back. Stay with us with Dear James on Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn.
RVN TV is a platform for people of any industry to share their story. Over 285,000 viewers are tuning in to RVN TV shows monthly. We guarantee a great experience that you'll be sharing with everyone you know while increasing your personal and company's brand awareness. But what is your brand? According to Forbes, it's a combination of your logo, your product, your design and feel, and your personality. Did you know that aside from being a guest, we offer even more opportunity to boost your brand? Adding your company logo and website on screen during your interview will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Have you just lost your job or have been laid off and you are looking to transition to a new job or career? Maybe you have even tried submitting tons of applications and yet you keep getting turned down for jobs you qualify for. Don't wait until you become overwhelmed with rejections when you can easily transition or get your dream job. Let MJW Careers guide you to the right career path and a better, brighter future. At MJW Careers, we know what hiring managers are looking for, and our goal is to land you the job you deserve. What makes MJW Careers a wonderful provider over other services is our pragmatic and scientific approach to resume writing. There are rules, there are visual cues, there are content best practices. We understand those and work within the boundaries to ensure our clients' messaging appeals to the decision makers. Our career consultants will help you transition into new roles quickly and effectively. With our experience in virtually every industry, we will provide direction in the frustrating job market by helping you write a customized, professional resume and prepare you for your interview as well. Join the great number of people we have helped scale up to greater things in their careers. Let us help you on your career journey. Come visit us, www.jobstickers.com, to learn more and grab a free resume review or ebook.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. The most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Hello and welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, live on Business Talk Radio, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We are blessed to have DearJames with us today. DearJames is an intuitive, a clairvoyant. He also has a radio show. He's an author, and he also has a column where he provides some advice. So, DearJames, let's get right to it. What are you hearing about what's going to happen in the next, I don't know, 30, 60, 90, 120 days? Pick any of them.
Well, there's a great, so astrologically, and I'm not an astrologer by trade, but the energies, I keep getting the interesting effect that it's like a concerto. It's the crescendoing part of a concerto coming up at the end of this month. And there's it's considered the Great Conjunction. So it's our two biggest planets, Jupiter and Saturn, are going to conjunct, align. They're going to be within like 0.01 degrees next to each other. The significance of this, it happens every 20 years. However, it's changing elements. It's going from Earth, so very fixed Earth, cold, to the air element, Aquarius, from Capricorn to Aquarius. So all of a sudden, that usually happens, Dr. Jacalyn, it stays in the same element for approximately 240 years. What's the significance of this? It's literally the age of Aquarius. It's an entire change of how fluid, not fixed, how things are going to change more rapidly. We've already felt the speeding up of life. Like everything seems to be going faster. So this is a very big deal that happens astrologically and so forth, which is, of course, energy. Intuitively, it's literally, the way it's coming to me is that it's this, in any great concerto, there's that building. It kind of gives you unease and anxiety, and you're like, and then it's like, dong, 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 boom. And you hit the boom, and after the boom, it's all melancholy and sweet and nice and nurturing and comforting, and you kind of walk out not rattled anymore. That's what's coming on the old is over. And we were talking before the show, so many people want the old days, the good old days, this period of time in their mind where things were kind and simple and easy and so forth. And it's not to say that what's arriving isn't that plus, but you do have to clear out the old energy. You have to end it. That old energy ends, so the new begins. So that's a bigger epic arc of what's occurring. And we see it. We see it in our lives, in our politics, in the world. It's very, there's roughly half of, 70-some million Americans that want an old way. Yes. Almost 80 million that want a new way. And so you can see this division and this split and what's required of both sides. The embodiment, the embracing of the moment, of the change. So for people out there watching and listening, and they're hearing this, and maybe they're just hearing it, they're in a state of panic, right? Thinking, oh my gosh, all this change. What would you say to them? Simply stop and take stock. First, be aware of the fact that is what's going on. There is an epic, energetic shift, change occurring. Everything is energy. We are energy. We see it in our daily lives. So in that chaos, in that madness of the change, of the experience, the way to root and ground yourself is to say, okay, right, what is it that I'm able to do in this moment that moves me a step forward? It may be the simplest thing. It may be buying yourself flowers, or looking out the door, or stepping out if you can into a garden, or simply taking 5 moments to just breathe, to meditate, to have a simple conversation with your kids and your spouse or partner and so forth. Anything can shift that so that you then say, oh, okay, I'm upright in this moment. The chaos may be going on. The change is happening. I often say you're at the dance. It's how do you choose to dance? We're all at the dance. We chose to be here. We chose to go through this moment and experience it. So what's up to us, within free will is, how do we choose to show up at the dance? And that choice, it's a choice, it's ours. Are we loving? Are we kind? Are we generous? Are we calm? Are we peaceful with ourselves, our immediates, our families, our loved ones, and the greater whole? Or are we combative and frustrated, angry and evil? What are we choosing? So what I would say to everyone is, take each moment a step at a time, a piece at a time. Find the joy in it's always find the joy in the journey, right? It's not the destination, it's the journey. We're going to arrive wherever we're arriving. The only thing we were responsible for is how we got there.
So it sounds like you basically are responsible for how you channel your energy, how you funnel it, in what way you're going to take that energy and either do good with it or just fall back.
Exactly. And again, the more people collectively coming together in a unified, positive way, that's a ripple. What does a smile do? A holding the door open for someone. You never know when you do that and you say good morning to somebody, you're smiling, and you hold the door open, and that person's like, oh, wow. Or, you're in the drive-thru or something and someone, oh, they paid for you. It's simple. It's not hard. Simple, simple, simple grace, simple courtesy, simple goodness, kindness. That is going to move you, and then collectively it builds. It's crescendoing, it builds. But so does the other, so does a mob mentality.
Yes, for
so
sure.
It's which side of the spectrum do you choose to be on? How do you choose to transition the change? Because it's happening. There's no stopping it.
There's no going back.
You can never go back. It doesn't work.
Right. So I think just to expound on a point that you made, so we can't go back. We can't control what's going to happen. We have right now. And if we choose to lead with kindness, if we choose to take our energy and put it into, I like to say now, because I've learned, staying in your lane, right? And living with graciousness and really being thankful. So I have to ask you, when did you realize that you had this gift of clairvoyance or intuition?
It was in 1994. I went to a one-day seminar, came in after the lunch break. The moderator asked if I would sit with this woman I didn't know to do the next exercise. It was a quick meditation, then receive what you get for each other. Famous last words, don't judge it. And then after you came out of the light meditation and the receiving, you exchanged information. And maybe a minute into it, all this stuff, right away, stuff started coming like a movie playing for me. I could see it, taste it, feel it, hear it. And I said, oh, this woman's going to think I'm a whack-a-noodle. And all I heard was, don't judge it. And I'm like, okay. Went through it, came out. She said, okay, you go first. I started explaining to her everything I received. When I got to the part about, and your marriage is very tumultuous. And the woman sitting next to her spun around and said, well, that's a good way to describe her marriage. And I kind of leaned back. I was like, oh, and the woman said, oh, I'm sorry, this is my mother. I go, hello. And then I said, and I hurried up. I got nervous and I was like, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. And I finished. And she basically repeated back to me everything that I had said. I live on a farm. The trees you're talking about are acorn trees. The horse that's an albino horse, that's my daughter's. It bites me all the time. Yada, yada, yada. My marriage is tumultuous. And when she finished, I was kind of stunned. And so I looked at her and I said, would you excuse me? And I got up and walked out of the ballroom. And as I call it, did the WTF dance at that point, because I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know this woman. So that was my awakening to it.
So how did you then handle knowing that you had this incredible gift, but you didn't have, it's not like someone handed you a book and said, okay, read this book. Like, this just came to you. And so how do you manage that?
I learned a lot of humility, grace, and surrender. And because it's so, with great responsibility or power comes great responsibility. I knew that it was solely for good, and I knew that the onus for utilizing the gift and everything was on me to be absolutely the best I could be, to be responsible with it and so forth, because you're dealing with people's lives and livelihood and so forth. And so I don't take that lightly at all. And it's never not been absolutely pure and good. And so with that as well, it's always that affirmation of the trust and the surrender and saying, okay, I'm just going to show up. Like you had mentioned, when it's tough, they're not hearing it, they're not having it, they're not ready. You still just have to trust. You have to listen and say, I'm delivering what I know to deliver, and then release it. Let it know that you've done what you needed to do. And then, again, let Source and Symphony and everyone take over and do what they're meant to do. But it required a lot of surrender, acceptance. I pushed back on it for some time. I'll just do my life over here and I'll dabble in this over here, and they weren't having it.
So back in 1994, when you first realized that you had this real gift, how would you say that it's changed since then, if it has?
I think because I've changed, I surrendered and everything, it's become much more profound, I guess is the word. It very, very accurate, very, not that it wasn't in the beginning, but there's a part where you're in unity with everything. And so it's expanded. It's more ever present, because I'm one with it. And for me, the lucky thing is, I say I'm a Gemini rising. So with Gemini, it's two. There's two of you. And so I love the fact that I can, in essence, turn it on, like I'm listening, okay, and then I can turn it off and I can just be me. So it's so I think that by divine design, that was wonderful. Good planning.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I was wondering how you can set a boundary between James and Dear James, because I would think if you're Dear James, you're on all the time, that has to be exhausting.
Yeah, so I'm very mindful of, and there are times where I overdo it, where I stay in the lane of Dear James too long with a client or something, and it can wipe me out. And so I'm mindful of how many clients, how many consultations I do in a day or a week. And even with that, sometimes just one can just completely wipe you out or lift you up. It depends on the energetic of it and everything. But you just have to be mindful, conscious of the fact that you're, of your energies and what you're doing, and set the boundaries. And there are times, it's funny, there are times where I'm like, I don't want to do that, or, and they're like, that's not an option.
That's not.
No, so you surrender and you show up and you do it. And that's how it comes about. So, that's how I manage it.
And with this gift and this talent that you have a number of ways that you can actually reach out and touch someone, help somebody. So you've got, you wrote the book, and you have a column, and you also have a radio show. And can you share with us which came first, the chicken or the egg? So where did you start, and where has it evolved to, and all these different avenues that are part of Dear James?
So I started with the private consultation. So I do private, group, or corporate business consultations. And it started with that. And then I built the website. And from there, went on the radio and had the radio show for almost 2 years with that. And then took a hiatus from that. That then and the advice column was simultaneous with that. So that started getting with the website creation and the through Facebook and other sources, other social media sources, people would submit their questions, and then I would answer them intuitively and post them and so forth. So it was all very interchanging, and there's a product line and so forth. And then the books came about. They're coffee table books because they came about from the actual original information. So the original information from source in the actual advice columns. And it's wisdom. It's just brilliant wisdom. And so that was paired up with images, beautiful images. So there's different ones from a seascape to animals to the faces of humanity, of divinity. So really beautiful collaboration on that front and everything. But that's kind of how it all progressed and so forth. It started with, and it started with the surrender. I mean, literally that, like we're talking about, like that life, your old life, James, it's over. It's done. Now you're going to be over here. You go this way. And that's what's happening on an epic scale now. It's saying, okay, this is done. We go this way now.
And when you think about the topics that people reach out to you for answer, for wisdom, for advice, do they fall into certain categories typically?
Predominantly, it's life, overall life, of certainly relationships. So, I mean, the top, sex, love, money, career, it runs the gamut. With companies and so forth, it's what's our overall look and plan? Who are our top tier people? Do we have issues or problems with them? Are these the right business decisions? So in group consultations, what is fascinating that I love is that you'll have 10, 12 people come together and each person will ask a question. And what's amazing is by the end of the consultation, of the gathering, they'll say to you, oh, I know I asked you about this, but that question and that question and that question spoke to me, resonated with me. And so there's always a beauty in the fact that they've come together, unbeknownst to them, they've come together for a greater reason than why they think they're there. They receive a greater benefit than their individual question.
So interesting.
Oh,
Do you prefer one more than another? So do you prefer working on an individual base or a group or a corporate?
I actually really love the group readings because it's, the drawback is that there are times where you would not, I'll give the information, but if there are things that I know that are just too personal or too raw or something like that, I'll ask to speak to them offline so that it remains private and confidential, personal, and all of the readings are confidential. It's like attorney, client, doctor, patient. It's like that for me. So I love the group because of the dynamic of it, the aspect of it. But the individuals we're always in reciprocity with each other. Everyone is a mirror for the other person. Everyone's showing up in the other person's play for them. We've all agreed there's characters and we're playing these roles. And so when I read for people, I'm telling their story, I'm reading for them, and yet there's always, always, always reciprocity, a gift, wisdom, knowledge, a ping of something. I'm like, oh, yeah, I needed to know that. Okay. And so it's beautiful in that way, in that exchange.
That sounds like a beautiful experience. And how open are you to taking on new clients? Absolutely.
I take new clients all the time, consistently, a lot of referral. Because of course it is a spectrum, like any industry. There are charlatans and people that don't adhere to a proper standard and or just not real. So for me, it's always the proof is in the pudding, and I greatly appreciate your testimonial of saying that, hey, I wasn't ready at the time, but wow, that was spot on. Because that speaks to people and it says to them, okay, yeah, this is real. It's the real deal. It's not something, airy fairy or this, that, or the other. It's a real thing, and you will gain real benefit from it.
Absolutely. Just to tag on to that. So as I mentioned, my sister, Debbie Wilson, had introduced us, and I know she's worked with you for many years. And I thought, you know what, in order to be authentic, I need to hire you and see how it goes. And a lot of emotions came up for me because, I'm much more in my own lane now than I was before, but you think you're in your lane. You think you know what you're doing. You think everything's okay because you're so used to doing things a certain way. And when you take a step back and you almost look like you're someone else looking into your life. It's like, wow, that was not where I was supposed to be. So I had the opportunity to hire you and to have that experience. And then, as I mentioned, it came full circle because I realized I think I had 5 or 6 pages of notes, and you did send me everything, but I was writing the whole time.
Right.
And I circled different parts, and every one of the things that you mentioned that you saw, they were all true. So I can say with 100% confidence that you are the real deal.
Thank you. No, and as I always say, it's them. Again, I don't write the news. I just report it. I'm the vessel, the conduit. Yes, I have to show up and do what I'm, to be open and do what I'm meant to do at its highest caliber. The beauty is the symphony source, that it comes from a higher spectrum and that it's always for your good. If anybody ever does so where it's not that, or they're leading you down a road of, and you just, we all know, you can feel it. And there's a difference between not being ready and it speaking truth, not being ready. And that's just huffery, puffery, whatever. Run. Don't, because that's not appropriate for anyone to be able to take advantage in that way. It should never be used in that way. So
and I think it's also important to mention, and you were just touching on this, that although you're getting information from source, you are the one delivering the information. And so you have to be affable, you have to be likable, you have to be professional and also be credible. And you are all of those things. Whereas there are people out there who are not. So maybe they're delivering information they hear from source, but their whole mannerism. It's almost like if you go to a doctor, right? And bedside manner, for example. So you want to make sure that you're going to somebody, they still have the same information possibly, but it's also the delivery of the information. And you do a great job with that.
Thank you. Yeah, I really listen and try to, because again, it's people's lives, it's their livelihood, their lives. And when it's great, when it's great information, yay, it's great. And you love doing it. When it's challenging or difficult or, then absolute empathy, understanding, compassion. And I'll ask them, there are times where I'll say, okay, they're not hearing me. They're not hearing you, like give me another way, and it's like a sale, like tack another way, give me another way to convey this. And finally it'll hit, something will ding and they'll be like, okay, yes. Okay. I got it. But how we do it. Yeah, absolutely. How it's delivered is paramount as well.
Well, I want to just share a very quick story that I'm hoping will be helpful for other people, and then I'd love to have you weigh in on it. So I was life presented an opportunity that I had to make a decision about how I was going to live the next foreseeable number of years, and be an assistant and be supportive to certain people. And I was really kind of angry that I felt like I was put in this position to make this decision because I knew it was going to impact me in a huge way. And I went for a walk and I thought about it and I thought, you know what? You know what it is you need to do. So this was not that long ago. So I made the decision. And once I made the decision, it was like, wow, that feels so good. And all of a sudden, this incredible sense of happiness. I bought this trampoline. I put it together yesterday, and I was jumping on the trampoline today, and I was looking out the windows, and I thought, I have never been happier. But until I made that decision and put down that bag of bricks I was carrying around, I was just all... So I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, what I love is the fact of how you actually engaged your fear. Right away, you said, okay, I can literally face this in a sense of it's happening to me. I don't want it to happen. I want to stay where I am and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And that entails, and this is something when people will often, humans look out, it's happening to me. I didn't construct this in some divine, wonderful tapestry that my soul wanted to experience. Somehow, that's not even, it doesn't exist. And all these things are happening to me. Once you step into the place of, wait a minute, I divinely created this. I divinely orchestrated this ahead of time. What's the gift? What's the benefit? let me move through the fear of letting go and step into the now, the moment, to move me through to where I'm going to go. And it's always, the anticipation is always worse than the event, right? And then you do it, and I did that with moving somewhere, and I did that with becoming Dear James, putting it off, and then when I finally got there and did it and showed up and everything, like you with the trampoline in that moment, I was like, I literally had this moment where I said, "What took you so long? Like, why did you fight that? Because I can't imagine doing anything else. It's so rich. It's such a gift." And so with you, you've made the right choice. You've made the right decision, because it was also about letting go of far more than what you let go of.
Absolutely.
On the surface.
Yes.
It was a real letting go. And if I may pivot just briefly there, I have 3 wonderful colleagues that we're going to be doing a workshop on this in January and February. And it's literally about letting go, the identity crisis that comes with the letting go, and what am I doing and who am I? What's the new? And this arrival in it. What does it feel like to be in that? And so I have the honor to, if I may, just Jen Tolo from Butterfly Family Wellness. I have Stephanie Benedetto Padavani from The Awakened Business, and Daniel Margroff from Sacred Solutions. And these 3 women, plus myself, all different practitioners, but we're going to do a workshop. So it would be wonderful for you, Dr. Jacalyn, and your audience and everybody to attend, or, somehow come into this. But the beauty of it is about this moment of transition, like you did, going from letting go, any minor, the identity crisis can be minor or major, depending on how you want to dance.
Right.
What's in the new for me? And look at you and yourself. Oh, wow. I haven't been happier. I mean, you're beaming. You're beaming.
Well, go ahead.
No, and just to say, and it doesn't mean that you're fully in the new, or that you've fully arrived in this new you. But isn't that the great opportunity of it? Isn't that the unexpected joy of it? But what you have done is you've shifted yourself, your energy, into this new, and then you see how everything starts opening up, because all of a sudden you're in right place, right time, right thing, right people, right everything. But you are the one that had to make the choice.
Exactly right. And for people who are really close to me, they know that this, in a lot of ways, this has been an incredibly difficult year. I've been very sick, and yet I am the happiest that I have ever been. And so I guess for anybody out there watching or listening, you can kick and scream and stomp your feet and hold onto your chair and say, I'm not going. But if you do, if you let go, if you open up to find out what else is out there by letting go of what doesn't serve you, you can be like me, jumping on that trampoline with that trampoline, just jumping for joy.
And isn't that, I mean, what does it say? Be childlike. You not to be, it's not religious or, but you want to enter the kingdom of heaven? Be childlike. Well, I can't think of anything more fun and childlike, like bouncing up and down on a trampoline. To say, oh, that's what I want. I want that.
Yes.
And as adults, we forget to do that. We forget to have fun. Everything's a grind. Everything's this challenge or something. And you forget to just, hey, go out and jump on the trampoline and see how that shifts you.
Yeah, singing Sweet Caroline. It's amazing.
I like it.
So I want to ask you a question about something else, because this has come up for me a number of times, and I'm wondering how you deal with it. But in this place of new and openness for more change, there are still those, as I mentioned, who are not in that place. And then these people call. They call on the phone, and they want to talk and talk and talk, and it's all negative, negative, negative. And I'm struggling with it, because sometimes I go into life coaching mode, even though it's a friend or, not a client. I'm talking about on a personal level. What do you do when someone a person that you're close with, or a colleague, someone reaches out to you and just is all negative? How do you handle that?
I typically will do two things. I will listen to, because again, one of the greatest gifts we can ever give anybody is to listen. And then at some point you have to move into, or I move into the awareness, the awareness, the awakening, the solution of it. With the understanding of, again, if you're not ready, I can't make somebody ready. And so whether that's our friends, our loved ones, whatever it may be, we can only, gently speak truth. Speak truth. Help mirror. Listen when we just need to listen. Maybe somebody just needs to vent. Okay, you're not asking for it to be a dialogue. It's a monologue. So okay, but I also don't just allow it to be that, or allow that to be consistently the same, because then it's not serving me, it's not serving you, whether it's a friendship, client. If it's not serving, it's not serving. And so you don't want to take on, I'm mindful to not take on others. That requires a lot of all of us. We should not be taking on others' journey. There's a beautiful statement in one of the books that says one of the hardest things is to allow another soul their journey. And when you stop to think about it, it's very true. You can see, we can see people, loved ones, friends, whatever, going down a road, doing things that we don't want them to do. We can see repercussions and this, that, and the other. And yet, who, as the Pope said, who am I to judge? It's not mine. It's not mine to tell you how to live. It's for you to have your soul's journey. And so the more we can stay in that lane and offer help from that place, but also not take it on and not become frustrated or enable and so forth. You've got to be, you've got to be consciously aware with yourself. What's mine? What's yours? What are you asking for? What aren't you asking for? What are you open to? What are you not open to? And proceed, for me, I proceed accordingly in that way.
It sounds like setting boundaries.
Absolutely. And being aware. I have to be consciously aware. Is it easy to listen and go and say, hey, do this and da-da-da-da, and it's all fixed and whatever? Yes. But sometimes that's not what somebody wants or needs. And so I then have to say, okay, or you've asked me and I've given you what I can, whether it's a friend, client, I've given you the information. Now I have to stop, or I can be there, but I can't make the change, just as they can't do it for me. That works in reverse. Somebody can say to me, hey, I think you're doing this, that, or the other. Okay, let me sit with that. Let me look at that. And then if a change needs to be made, it's incumbent upon me to do that. It's not for them to do it for me. So.
Right, I understand.
Yeah.
I think what's also has been interesting for me on this journey is, I got my yoga certification during the pandemic. Next Monday, I will get my meditation teacher training certification. So I'm always trying to do things that are calm and peaceful and learning. And then it's almost like you are in this place of Zen and someone calls you up and you get a bat in the head. It's like, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no.
All right, wait a minute. You're rocking my bliss here.
Right. But then I feel like maybe the reason why they called me as opposed to someone else is because I have the ability to listen and I have the ability to understand. And maybe that's what they need. Just someone that answered the phone who's not going to be talking back or giving advice or making a judgment.
Absolutely. And the way I'm hearing it, Dr. Jacalyn, right now is, you too have a gift. So people come to you naturally, organically. The exchange we're having is very easy, comfortable, informative, insightful. It's a wonderful exchange. And so you too, they were saying to me, you too have a gift. So people naturally come to you. Where the struggle may be, or the challenge may be, that you're now fully coming into this life, this way of being, this the acceptance of it, the challenge of it, the gift of it, the fun of it. And so like I always say, we're all always learning, always. teacher, student, student, teacher. And thankfully so. Because again, if we're not that, then we're in a state of hubris. When we're not in that lane, we're in a state of humility because the teacher is learning from the student's learning from the teacher. We're in constant reciprocity, and thereby it's a state of grace. It's a state of humility. And there's one other thing they said, which may help is, they said, this is going to happen. What's happening is going to happen. They told me this a few years ago, and they said, stay in the eye of the hurricane. Because if you stay in the eye, it's calm. If you get out on the periphery, and I equate it to those horrible rides at carnivals, I think it's called the tilt-a-whirl.
Oh, I hate that.
They strap you onto the outside of an outer circle, and they start spinning it, and the floor drops out, and it's moving up and down, and I'm going to be the guy that you're going to get upchucked on by because I'm going to throw up. So, and yet if you were standing in the center, it's like the wheel's not moving.
Right.
So that's also a very good lesson, especially right now as we're going through these major transitions. Stay in the eye of the hurricane. It's not don't be informed. It's not don't be aware and be conscious, but it means, again, do I have to jump in and run to the raging center of an argument or a Facebook post or something and get swallowed up in the crazy on the periphery, the storm? Because once you do, off you go. And where you land and where it takes you and how your day goes, and it'll toss you about. But if you kind of just go, okay, I'm aware, I'm listening, but I don't have to engage in a way that's problematic or that harms me or may harm others. I'm in the eye of the hurricane. I'm just staying calm.
I love that. And dear James, the analogy you just made of that tilt-a-wheel or whatever.
Tilt-a-whirl.
Tilt-a-whirl. So what gets me and again, there's no judgment, just an observation, but a person gets in a vehicle, drives to the place, pays money to go on this thing that they could possibly become sick. Who knows? The thing could break. You could fly off of it. And people are like that. To your point, they want to go where they could possibly have an argument. They want to butt heads with people. And I always think, especially with what we've gone through this year, there's some people almost just like searching for that because they're so used to living that way.
Yeah, that is their own sense of being alive, if you will, and or they're so tortured by the change. The fear is so great. Again, we can look at it, non-political. You can look at it and say that an elderly Caucasian white male with a multi-ethnic, multinational female, and we're going from a Piscean patriarchal rule where the man rules, the male dominates over the feminine. That is patriarchal rule. And we're leaving this Piscean patriarchal rule, and we're going to the age of Aquarius, the Aquarian matriarchal rule. Matriarchal is not the feminine over the masculine. It is the harmonizing, the blending, the unity, the union of that. It's the repairing of it. It's bringing the two in to be one. And so all of a sudden, that terrifies people because we can look back and say, well, for the last 2,000 plus years, our history, our known history in our current lives, I've known a Piscean, patriarchal, male-dominated way of life, rule. My family, my grandparents to my great-grandparents, you know what I mean? Like you can look all the way back and you have this lesson, this way of doing something. And all of a sudden there's a change and it's saying, okay, yes, we did that. That was part of the lesson. But the next chapter is this unity and this everyone has a place at the table and everybody is equal and there's goodness. It doesn't mean that you're going to have less. It means everybody rises up. But there's fear in letting, and there's some that say, oh, yes, 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 yes. And there are others that are going, no, 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 no. It's going to happen. It happened previously. We went from the Taurus rule. It was where they, back in ancient Egypt, they venerated the Apis bull. So you have the Mithraic, the ancient Egyptian schools and everything. You're venerating the bull. It leaves and it goes to the sign of Aries, the ram, the lamb. Master Jesus comes in right at the tail end, at the cusp of leaving Aries and coming into Pisces. So he has a moniker of both being the lamb, the ram, and the fisher of men, Pisces, the fish. But at each junction, when it changed, there were those that were programmed, programmed meaning open to, accepting, wanting to move into the new, and those that cleaved to the past, because it's what they knew. And so you can see in this, when people are calling you up, whether it's friends or the clients coming to you and so forth, they're dealing with a natural internal fear of change, a fear of the unknown, a fear of the old is going, a new is arriving. Who will I be in the new? I only know this old me. You doing what you did, moving and the whole thing. You literally said to yourself, self, I'm going to let go of the old me. I'm going to go stand over here and see where it takes me.
Absolutely. And you know what? Just to add on to that, I've been getting Botox since I was 26 years old. Well, I'm not getting it anymore. So my face has wrinkles. Oh, well, sorry. That's just...
Here we are.
Just the way it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, and hey, nothing wrong with Botox at all either. Lots of people, but there's also a naturalness and an organicness about this time of, we came in with wrinkles, we'll leave with some. There's no, we came in as a soul, we're going to leave as a soul. We didn't come in with riches and mansions and expensive cars and, designer clothes and handbags and blah, 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 all these material items. We didn't come in with them. They became part of the experience, but what was consistent and constant is your soul. And that's another thing about this time. We're leaving this era, this fixed earth era, where everything was about what you had, what you have. I feel safe. I'm comfortable. I'm happy. I'm expansive because I have this job and this money and that car and this home and yada, 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 yada. And then soul, was in the back seat if he was in the car at all.
Maybe in the trunk.
Yeah, I mean, literally in the trunk and not even in the vehicle. Like, what are you talking about? I mean, and what's happening now is it's a complete flip of that. It is a soul-based, soul-focused, forward, integrated movement, energetic. It's going to be that you are, the mind and the soul and everything is one, and it just already knows what to do. It bypasses all of this crazy, the chatter in our head, and you just do it because you know to do it, because the soul is leading. It's kind of like the ego personality. We're done. You had your era. You had your run. you did what you did with it. Now the soul's in charge. And it's at the forefront. So the soul source connection is at the forefront. It's leading. And it will never, 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 the soul can never take you astray. Our ego minds, our personalities and so forth, they'll lie, they'll steal, they'll cheat, they'll barter with you, they'll negotiate. Well, couldn't I just do this? I mean, couldn't I?
Just for one more time.
Yeah,
or maybe just
right. And internally, the soul, because the famous one I love the most is, I knew not to do it and I did it anyways. Because the soul knows, the soul is in there going, no, no, you're supposed to do this. And yet ego says, oh, well, I'm just going to do it one more time. And, it won't be that bad. And I can just, and I can just. And then, famous last words, because it's like, oh, I knew not to do that. And look what happened.
We make deals with ourselves when we shouldn't be. So I have one more question for you. We're actually at the top of the hour, but just a question for those who are out there watching, listening, who may be thinking to themselves, how do I know if I'm in my lane?
When it is absolutely, when I say effortless, It should just be of ease. It flows. You are not a salmon swimming upriver. Internally, you will know. And for that analogy, look, swimming upriver for the salmon is innate. It isn't a challenge. We would look at that as a challenge because it's not our nature. Our nature is to flow. The soul knows to flow. It knows what to do. It's like an internal GPS. It's never wrong. It knows what to do. The mind, the personality, the ego, it diverts. It takes us off course. So the thing would be that when you just sit quietly and you say, like you did, I've got a choice before me. And you said very clearly, I know what to do. I know what the right choice is. Listen to it and then do it. If you're spending time in all the in the head, the monkey mind and the ego and and I don't want to give up, you're in the wrong lane. Because what you don't know or what you're not remembering is that knowing is your soul plan. It's your soul source connection speaking and saying, we're taking you to the next great thing. You just have to let go. Let go, be willing. And of course, once you get there, you're like, why'd I wait so long? But that's the thing, is you'll know. You'll know what to do, that you'll know what's right. And when it's right, follow it. It's not something you talked yourself into. It's not something that somebody else talked you into or out of. It's not something that's fearful based. There can be fear around it, but the fear, again, is that catalyst. Okay, fear. Okay, I'm going to use you as a catalyst. Let's go. And then you jump in and you're jumping on a trampoline. You're happy.
Happiness it's just envelops you. At least that's my experience.
And I would say to you, Dr. Jacalyn, you could probably in this moment too say, picture yourself what you've explained, where you are, and if you had stayed and not done what you did.
Oh.
And see, you already know, like you instantly know, right? Oh, I can feel all of that. And it wouldn't have been, I wouldn't be here.
It wouldn't be where I am, exactly. And so I retired from my corporate job and the huge paycheck and everything else, and people thought I was insane. And I thought I would never go back. I loved my job. I loved working with the people. Never, ever, ever, ever. I can't even explain it. But I have to tell you, I was so immersed in this conversation, I never ran the rest of the commercials. So my apologies for sponsors. I didn't play your commercials. But it has been such a phenomenal conversation as always. How can we reach out to you? How can we find out about this workshop you're putting together?
So if you you can reach me through www.DearJames.com. You can also email me at info@DearJames.com. And then the information for the upcoming town halls, the series, the workshops that we're going to be doing, the four of us, that'll be out in early, mid-January for the latter January. It'll be a 2-part series to begin with. So it'll be one at the end of January and one at the end of February. And that'll all be posted. It'll be on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm on all the social media.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to say also to anyone who's listening or watching, you will be able to see this show again in case you want to recommend it to your friends. On Facebook, you can go to Dr. Jacalyn LLC and watch this, or you can go to YouTube, Dr. Jacalyn LLC, and you can listen on Business Talk Radio on Monday. So all you have to do is you go to businesstalkradio1.com and you can put in Dear James and it'll automatically take you to his program. So I'm sure there are people out there, as this big change is coming, as the hurricane's coming, that if you want to get into the middle, into the eye, that you may want to reflect and listen to this program again.
Absolutely. And thank you so much again for the honor and the privilege. Thank you.
Well, it's definitely been mine, and I'm going to be reaching out to you to hire you again because I have some other questions about what's coming up. And in the meantime, I'd love to have you back on the program again.
Absolutely, with pleasure. Thank you so much, Dr. Jacalyn.
Thank you so much. I'll see you backstage in one moment. And to our friends who are out there on Facebook, I see you, and you didn't put any comments, but that's okay. We're really grateful to have you. And if you'd like to be a guest on one of our programs, we are excited for this variety show. You can have, you could be a comedian, you could be an actor, you could be a singer. We actually have a band coming on next week, so that's kind of interesting. So just reach out to me through DearJaCalyn.com. And on my website, I do have a place where you can book your session. So just look into any of the different programs that we offer. We'd love to have you share your story, share your talents, and be part of the Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn team. So stay safe, and again, look inside and look and do the work that you need to do. Listen to your intuition, because I can tell you what, it's a really great place once you get there. And I would definitely reach out to Dear James. He is authentic. He's the real deal. He really helped me. And again, a big thank you to my sister, Debbie Wilson, for the introduction, and also for the work that she's doing on herself, because I think when you're working on yourself, and your family members, your friends, your colleagues, they're also working on themselves, you really want to hang out with people who are doing the work. So I encourage you to do yours, and thanks for being loyal to our program. We'll see you next week.